Hey guys, JoNay here. Welcome to day 2, flight 1 of my one-man army campaign. I guess first of all, I'll get you guys up to speed with a bit of recap of what happened on day 1. Day 1, what happened was we were pretty successful at clearing out pretty much every SAM site along the flot. All the SA2s and all the SA5s have been pretty much removed. The only SAMs that are kind of close to the flot right now is an SA3 guarding this airbase Seoul, and another one that was guarding Kang Noon, which was a airbase that we struck on our last flight with the F-18. There was also a news report that popped up right at midnight after the first day. It's no longer there, so I can't show it to you anymore, but it said that NATO forces have pushed DPRK forces back to the DMZ. And if we go to Intel and go to JSTARS, it doesn't really indicate that too much. We definitely have blue troops moving forward, but I don't really see them pushing the red forces back too far. So it kind of looks like we're just sort of holding the line right now, but the campaign engine seems to think that we're making progress. With that being said, the DPRK has been pretty aggressive. They have been getting pretty deep into the territory. They have successfully struck Kunsan, as well as Sachon, which was, I think it's down here. Where was Sachon again? It's down on this, there it is, right there, Sachon. Sachon was one of my alternate air bases, if you guys watched the ROE video. So it's one of the air bases I would only be using as an alternate. It has CF-18s, Australian F-18s, and I think some Tornadoes are based out of there as well. So that base is down to 0. Kunsan is down to 1 runway. It's technically listed as 50% operational. So as you can see there, 50% operational. So we've got the long runway, which is technically 5 segments. I don't like that. Let's go like this. Technically 5 segments. 2 have been destroyed, and 3 are showing no damage. And then this long runway here, which I actually don't even know if it is technically a runway, because there's no other runways that show up in any of these asset lists. I don't know. I have to assume that's kind of okay too. So when a base is 50% in BMS world, you are allowed to frag flights out of it. They won't be canceled. If the base was at 0% or something and you fragged a flight, as soon as you got to the ramp start time, like when you would enter the 3D, you basically just come back to the map. And I think the flight is auto deleted. That's kind of what happens. So what I originally did was, because as per my ROEs, I am supposed to be back in the F-16 Block 50s flying out of Kunsan for this mission. I fragged myself a relatively complex mission where I would be striking the MiG-21 base right up here, which is Suwon, I believe. Yeah, Suwon. I would be striking that, then coming back south, hooking up with a tanker, and trying to do air support for 2 A-10 flights that were going to be running a pre-planned CAS on the 114th Airborne, as well as the 435th Air Defense Battalion. Some goofy things happened, though. The ATO wouldn't let me frag my flight with enough lead time to be able to get over here, drop some bombs, come back and get fuel, and then resume the second part of the mission. It staggered my flight and the A-10's flights by only 15 minutes. So I guess there's a 15-minute maximum that you can set between flights within a package. I didn't know about that, and that's definitely going to throw a wrench into the works of some of my plans for being successful in this campaign. So that was the first thing. So what happened was, I originally had this mission started at midnight, and then it bumped my takeoff time up to 1 o'clock, 1 a.m., right? And the A-10s would be taking off at 1:17 or something like that. So I was like, fine, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to see what happens. It's not an ideal mission. It's probably going to be a clusterfuck, but let's go for it, right? So I the plan was to try to take off on those first 3 segments of the main runway. What ended up happening was I crashed into some invisible cratering damage or something within, I'm telling you, it was like the first third of the runway easily, maybe the first quarter. I got blowed up. So I was like, well, that's bullshit. So I backed up the campaign. I started it again, and I was going to take off from that long diagonal alternate runway I showed you, and I blew up just taxiing to it, to the far end of it, which was up in the northeast. So there's damage that you can't even see all over Kunsan right now, and you basically just blow up if you collide with like the invisible hitboxes. So Kunsan says 50%, but it's bullshit. I can't really use it. So what I've decided to do was scrap that whole package. I scrapped the A-10s because I won't be able to cover them. I scrapped the F-16, and I decided that as per ROE, I'm going to go to one of my alternate airfields. Now, like I said, Sachon has been hit, so I'm going to have to fly out of Pusan, which is going to be another Block 40 mission. Pusan is pretty far away from that air base and this general area of where I wanted to work. So I decided to just scrap that whole idea. I'm just going to go work on the East Coast over here. Another reason which made this whole kind of original idea a mess was, like I said, I started, the mission was originally supposed to start at midnight. So I fragged it. The ATO changed it to a 1 o'clock a.m. departure time. So while I was X-64ing the clock, all these red airplanes just came into my territory, and they were everywhere, like MiG-23s, even MiG-29s, MiG-21s, bombers, they were everywhere. And I was just like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this, you know, with an F-16. It's all I had was a centerline tank carrying 4 big-ass 2,000-pound bombs and 4 AMRAAMs, right? Like, how am I possibly going to do this with 4 AMRAAMs and that much weight and that little fuel? That's another reason why I just kind of decided to drop it all. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fly a Block 40, and I'm going to try to go run some pre-planned CAS over on the coast. So let's talk about today's mission. We can't see anything here. The reason why I fragged all this, though, is because there were a bunch of tank battalions here earlier. They were visible, I think, around Flight 1 or Flight 2 of yesterday in the campaign, and then they kind of disappeared about halfway through the day. But I never saw them actually moving, so I knew that they were kind of still there. And the last time that I looked at them in the recon screen, they were in nice, juicy, like straight lines, which is kind of perfect for JSOWs, right? So what I've done is I've loaded myself up with 2 pylons of JSOWs, which is 4 JSOWs. I've got 2 wing tanks, a jammer, which I may or may not need, and 4 AMRAAMs. So like I said, I was pretty sure that they were still there, but I wasn't exactly sure where they were. So what I did is I went to the order of battle, went to DPRK. You go to Army, and for those of you, a lot of you probably know this trick, but some of you may not. You can find invisible assets on the map with little tricks like this. So for example, if I wanted to find where the 3rd Army base was, you could just go find, and there it is. Now, if I wanted to find something like invisible, like, what am I striking? I forget what I'm striking here. What am I striking? It's like the 1st tank battalion or something. Yeah, no, is that it? Oh, I can't remember now, guys. Hang on a second. 2nd Armored Division. Yes, so this is what I was doing. So I was just kind of going through things, highlighting it, going find, seeing where it was, going find. Okay, that's not what I was. Okay, I'm back. So I don't know if you guys know about this trick. A lot of you guys probably know about this trick. Some of you probably don't. What you can do is you can just kind of go through the order of battle, and you can just kind of go through things and find where they are on your map. You just go like this, you hit find, and then the map will center to where it is. And you can do this even for things that are kind of like invisible. So eventually I got to something that fit where I last saw these things that were defending like Wosan Bridge or something. So let's go installations, we'll turn on political. And then this is like Wosan. and then Wosong Bridge is like a little bit north of it or something. So all these units kind of like popped up exactly where I remember them being. So what I did was I fragged a pre-planned cast for myself to strike this 1st Tank Battalion of the 5th Air Mobile Division. So they were right there, and I put Steer 4 there. And then the 2nd Tank Battalion, a little bit further north. 3rd Tank Battalion, a little bit further north of that, kind of like all presumably along this road. And then the 4th Tank Battalion is going to be a little bit west of them, kind of still like along this road. And you can just kind of triangulate that center by zooming in and out like this. And if your steer point doesn't really move, then you probably have it like positioned in the right place. Like this one might be a little bit high. It's probably like down here somewhere. So you can't really recon these things. Like for example, if I go to the order of battle and I go like this and I right click and I go recon, it brings you to the area, but you can't really recon it. And if let's say I rotate around, I'll look at it at like heading 315, which is sort of the direction I'm going to be ingressing at. Like they're not on the map. You can't really see them. Unfortunately, these guys are in an urban area, so I'm hoping that all the inhabitants, virtual inhabitants, have cleared out of there. And this one is, let's see, it's not really in an urban area, so they're probably just like somewhere along this road right here. That straight line road is right here, basically. So they're somewhere along this road. I'm hoping they're all in nice stationary columns, and I'll put a JSOW on steer 4, one on steer 5, one on steer 6, and hopefully one on steer 7. This mission, it makes more sense than the last one also because in the last mission we did take out this MiG-23 base to the north, so we shouldn't be too bothered really. The closest air base to us is this MiG-21 base that's kind of like right in the center of the country, and then most of the other fighter bases are all off to the east, so we should be kind of like clear for fighters. So we're gonna take off, head north, kick out, or maybe just skip steer 2. Steer 2 is placed on, I think it's Pohang, so this is the other Block 40 base, which I'm going to use as kind of an alternate base. I might just skip steer 2, head straight to steer 3, ingress on steer 4 from feet wet position, just so I can kind of reduce the ground clutter that I've got to kind of scan with my eyeballs. I'll try to find the targets at steer 4, deploy the JSOW in such a way that it can get maximum damage, do the same at steer 5, do the same at steer 6, and do the same at steer 7, and then hopefully RTB. I don't know if any of these tanks, like clearing them out is really going to help my campaign efforts too much, because I don't really have like a ton of troops south of them that are looking to move north. Most of the action is over on this side of the Flot, but like I said, I am a little bit handcuffed from the fact that I have to fly out of Pusan. As per my ROEs. So that's the mission. I'm just kind of going for like max damage, just trying to chip away and contribute to the Blue Forces efforts in this kind of war of attrition. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. Okay, so I haven't done JSOWs in a long time, but wish me luck, and I'll see you guys in the pit. Hey guys, JoNay here. I'm back. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of ACMI review to show you what happened on the day 2 flight 1 of the one-man army campaign. Okay, so as you saw in the briefing, we're loaded up with a bunch of JSOWs. We're ingressing feet wet on a northwestern heading, and we're looking for this column. So I got close to it. I pickled off the 2 JSOWs with the proper attack azimuth and everything. The JSOW's kind of homed in on the target, got nicely lined up, like so, and then came down and impacted. Now, here's what happened though. It didn't really wipe out the whole column like I thought it would. I was a little bit underwhelmed, actually. It just kind of created like two holes in this column of tanks and stuff. It did get 10 kills. It's not bad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But there is like 20 plus targets in this column, so it was kind of like a little bit less than what I wanted to do. If you remember, actually, what I was hoping to do was just put one JSOW and wipe out this whole thing. But they're not quite as OP as I remember them being back in the 4.32 days. So at the last second, I decided to put two JSOWs on it, and as you see, even that was still not enough to take out a whole column of tanks. So then what I did is I think I swung around, I did a BDA, and I was trying to decide if I should put two more on there, but you know, the damage pattern was just too jankety. I was like, I'm not sure how to do this. And I mean, it's like when you're in the pit and you're looking at this with a TGP, it's not even clear exactly what is destroyed and exactly what's not. You know, if I could do it again, I'd probably just put one over here and put one over here and take out, you know, 98% of the column. But it's not that clear, really. So I decided just to move on to the second steer point, which was this column over here. I pickled off two more JSOWs with exactly the same parameters. Whoops. They went out to the column, got onto the east-west azimuth. It was kind of interesting. I was expecting the columns to be lined up northwest or north-south to be like in line with those roads that we reconned, but they're actually aligned east to west. So anyway, the JSOWs came in right on target and did the same kind of thing. Like they just put two pockets of damage in the column. So it was another 10 kills, I believe, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So I did get 20 kills with the JSOWs, which is not bad, but it didn't really like wipe any of these columns off of the map, kind of like I was hoping they would. After that, I think I circled around, did another BDA. Retrograded a little bit south of the flot, proceeded west, looking for something to use my AMRAMs on. I found these two guys, which are just, where are they? The AN2s. They look like F-16s in ACMI, but they're actually just like these little biplanes. They're almost like Cessnas. But I'm pretty sure they're like old school biplanes. I was so confused. They're just going 110 cast down the ground. I thought they were helicopters at first until I got the TGP on them. I didn't even know what the hell they were, because I'm pretty sure there's nothing listed like that in any of my squadrons in the order of battle, and I don't remember them being listed in any of the red ones. I wasn't sure if they were friendly or enemy or whatever. I just didn't think they were worth engaging. So I flew past them, kept proceeding west, looking for anything really to shoot. Oops. And yeah, it was actually really quiet. So I set up a couple of overfly steer points and just kind of held a bar cap for a little bit, hoping to run into something. I did find a couple of MiG-29s, and it looked like they were escorting four more, like a larger cluster of like 4 contacts that I never really VID'd. I was hoping they were Su-25s, and they did turn out to be Su-25s, but I ended up needing to engage the MiG-29s. So both of my missiles homed in on one of them, damaged, then destroyed him. They fired a missile at me, which I actually never even got an indication of, so I don't think it ever like pit-bolted properly or got a lock on me. And I turned back in hot on the last MiG-29, which was kind of flanking me. Put a missile on him, destroyed him, and then by that time the cluster of Su-25s were like really close. By the time I kind of retrograded south, get a little bit of turning room, turned back in like northwest looking for this group, by then they were kind of like right under me, and I was scanning past them, couldn't see them. By this time AWACS had gone midnight on me, so I had no intel from them. Kind of scanned around, couldn't find them in any direction I was looking. I kind of didn't expect them to go so far out towards the east coast. I expected them to sort of track south, but I just wasn't able to pick them up. So then I turned back northwest one more time to look for them. Couldn't find them. Decided of course I turned to the left and not to the right, and decide to retrograde an RTB. If I would have turned around to the right, I would have seen them for sure. But it was just nothing went right there, so I just started RTBing south, and then as I was, the Patriot started shooting at them, which is good. Took out at least one of them, and then one missile went ballistic. A couple of more launched, and they look like they're tracking good, and that's when I stopped the ACMI. So I'm hoping that they got splashed and didn't do too much damage. Okay, so what can we learn from this ACMI? Let's back up a little bit and go to that first column. Okay, here we go. So what I want to do is I want to find this column here. Where are they? TU-62s. Okay, so that's the column right there. So I want to find, because when I was in the pit and I was targeting them, I wasn't, I set my JSOWs to be like a tandem setting, but I didn't know what to do for spacing on them. Like, how far apart do I space them? At what part of the column should I target? I know that if you, let's say I targeted the middle point of the column, and I think I set a 1,500 foot spacing on the JSOWs, and that's what happened. And that's what happened. So I don't have a whole lot of experience with weapon. I was just thinking, like, I don't know what to do with spacing or whatever. So let's go ahead and try to figure this out, what the best spacing and how to deploy JSOWs is. So I'm gonna go through this list here and try to find this TU-62 and this ACRV, because I want to figure out how long this deployment is. So here's the ACRV. Okay, so we got one there. Now we need to find this TU-62. So I'm just going to go down this list, try to find that one on the very far end. It's pretty close. Start from the bottom, maybe. That's that one. So many. What is happening? I think I'm selecting TU-60. Yeah, TU-62s from the column further up north. Okay, there it is. It's right there. Okay, last one on the list. Perfect. Okay, so how far is this? Can't really see. It says 1.6 nautical miles. So that's quite a lot further than I expected them to be. When I was visually assessing it in the TGP, I don't know, it looked like maybe a half mile. I didn't expect it to be 1.6 miles. So let's go ahead and figure this out. So here they are if we just kind of put our camera in the ground, and we're going to zoom in on them like that. Just make sure that the green line there is nice and straight as much as possible. Okay, close enough. Let's screen cap this. And we're going to go to Photoshop. Okay guys, welcome back. We're in Photoshop here. I've pasted the image in a new document, and I've cropped it down a little bit to get rid of the UI from ACMI. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new layer here. And I'm going to grab the box marquee, and I'm just going to kind of create like a fine little guide line here, like so. Shift F5 to fill it. A little bit too thick actually, so I'm going to trim it down a little bit. Okay, there we go. So now I'm going to create a duplicate of it, drag it out to the other end. So this first one I'm going to put right there. The second one's there. Let's create another copy. This will represent sort of like the halfway point of the column. This one will be the quarter point. This one will be the 3/4 point. Now I'm going to select them all, and I'm going to hit this button up here to evenly distribute them all. Okay, so let's grab a text box here. And the start of the column is going to be like 0,000 feet. Now, like we found out, this whole column from front to back is 1.6 nautical miles. So what's that in feet? Let's grab a calculator. We know that there's about 6,000 feet in a nautical mile. It's actually a little bit more, like 6,078 or something. but we're going to multiply this by 1.6 just to keep the math simple. So it's about 9,600 feet from front to back for this column. So let's duplicate this text box. We're going to put it over here, make this 9,600. Duplicate it again for the halfway point. Half of 9,600 is going to be, it would be 4,500 for half of 9,000 plus another 3, so it'll be 4,800. 4,800 feet. Duplicate this again and again. Okay, half of 4,800 is going to be 2,400. And this one is 2,400 plus 4,800, which is 5,200, 7,200. Okay, so those are in feet, all the kind of key markers of this column here. Okay, let's look back at the ACMI here. Okay, so this is where the JSOWs hit, where they impacted. Okay, so the first one impacted these two TU-62s just to the left of the MT-55s. Okay. And the second one impacted right there. So it took out the ZILs, 135s, and then two groups of two T62s to the right of it. So that's kind of the footprint we got. Let's create like a circular marquee like that. I'm going to choose a different color. Let's choose like yellow or something. And new layer. I'm going to make a stroke on this, 4 pixels, sure. Okay, so that is kind of like the footprint. And then where was the other one? We're going to duplicate that. The other one was kind of right here, right? Yep. All right, so if we look at, this is a screen cap of the video right before I launched the JSOWs at the column. I have 3,000 foot spacing on the tandem with an end game altitude, which is basically the burst altitude, set for 1,500 feet. So we can see that the spacing is too far. The spacing is too far, and I think the footprint is too narrow. I made the footprint intentionally like 1,500 feet because I wanted it to be a bit more concentrated because I'm worried about the armor of these T62s being too strong for the bomblets inside these JSOWs. But I'm thinking we need to like increase the footprint a little bit with a higher endgame altitude and decrease the spacing a little bit. So what do we need for spacing? We have 4 bombs. We need to evenly distribute the bombs across this column. So we're going to grab the first one. First one here. We want the first one to hit kind of around there. We want the second one to hit kind of around here. And then, yeah, it's obviously going to take 4 JSOWs to take out this column. So we're going to duplicate another layer and put this right over here. Duplicate another layer. Put it kind of over here. And we need to increase the footprint a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all, and I'm just going to like do a free transform like that to hopefully represent the larger footprint, but it's going to be less concentrated footprint, I think, unfortunately. And we want this one to kind of hit right around here. This one to hit right around here. The third one to hit right around here. And the fourth one to hit right around here. I'm going to select them all and do another even distribution. That's kind of what we would like to see, ideally. So the spacing on these is going to be 2,400 feet. So if I drag them over, you can see like the center points of these blast radiuses match like basically a quarter mark of this column. So what we've got to do as we're ingressing on a tank column, presuming it's the same size as the last two that we engaged, and this is BMS, there's no reason to think that they'd be any different. We need to make a mark point at the quarter point of the column, make another mark point at the 3/4 mark, select the mark point of the first one, deploy 2 JSOWs with a larger footprint. I'm thinking we did 1,500 foot for the last one, so I'm thinking like 2,500 feet. 2,500 feet end game altitude, and a spacing of 2,400 feet. And then we'll do the same for the next 2 JSOWs and deploy them on the mark point for the 3/4 mark of the column. So I think that's what we're going to try to do. On the next mission, we're gonna do another block 40 for JSOWs, and we're probably going to look for one of those tank columns that we didn't actually strike on the last mission. Okay, so now we understand JSOWs a little bit better and how to use them, and let's see if we can put that knowledge to practice. Okay, so thanks for watching. There's not going to be any kind of flight footage in this video, but we'll have some in the next one. Okay, we'll see you next time. Bye.